Welcome back to Switch to Linux. It is another special edition here as we will once again be talking net neutrality. This is kind of the week to act. The alleged vote will be coming up December 14th, which gives us really only about 2 weeks' time. So I have written my open letter, and I'm going to be mailing this in the actual mail and then emailing this letter as well, posting it on my blog and right here. So I'm just going to read, and I think I'm actually going to stop and elaborate just a few points. I want to really stay right on focus of this letter here. And so what we're pretty much going to do is it's just going to be a little bit different than usual, but this is my open letter to Congress, the Senate, and the President of the United States. Over the last decade, I've watched as the internet progressed from being an interesting curiosity into a tool required by schools, and now it is a real necessity to Americans. I would probably rather it not be such a necessity, but I am no longer receiving car registration information by mail. It is my responsibility to go online to renew my car registration. Every bank and service that I have is encouraging online statements, and even our older citizens need to use online resources for Social Security payments. In short, the internet has become a utility. The reality is Title II classification means the internet is a utility and should be regulated as such. While I am generally not in favor of a lot of regulation, it is such regulation that can keep us safe. We have speed limits to make our roads safe. Pharmaceuticals are, hopefully, regulated. And other regulations prevent me from advising medical or legal or financial services without proper training or certifications. Beyond that, net neutrality is not representative of heavy, restrictive regulation. It merely states the following from page 7 of the FCC document 1542. Number 1, no blocking. An ISP may not block legal internet traffic from any source. Number 2, there is no throttling. An ISP may not slow down internet to any source. And no paid prioritization. An ISP may not prioritize internet traffic from any source. Understand that while these are quote-unquote net neutrality rules and regulations, these are not actually regulations. These are simply telling an ISP you may not do certain things. So these rules are not restrictive, except the restrictions they apply to the ISP to prevent innovation from startups by prioritizing their own business interests while simultaneously throttling their competitors. This alone is problematic, but some have said the internet did fine before these 3 tenets of net neutrality were introduced in 2015, and they would like to return to a totally unregulated state of the internet. This is, however, farcical to assert the internet was doing fine for the following reasons. First, the internet was an emerging technology until recently. It has only been about a decade since we have speeds and customers to make the internet into the status of utility. Therefore, to look back 20 years or even 10 for regulatory precedent is fallacy. The reality is the internet has been a Wild West status for the majority of the time we have used it. It has really only been a necessity for the last few years. The past years of non-regulation are not relevant because a gap always exists between emergent technologies and legal precedent. Second, it is worthy to consider the actions of major ISPs leading to the reclassification of the internet as Title II and the implementation of 2015 net neutrality rules. These are the known incidents, all of which were ended by the FCC intervention. And I actually have links here, and I will include those links in this video and in the original document on switchtolinux.com. So in 2005, Madison River Communications was blocking VoIP services. Comcast was denying access to P2P and torrent services. AT&T was having Skype and other VoIP services blocked because, of course, it competed with their core business. Metro PCS tried to block all streaming except YouTube. AT&T, Sprint, and Verizon were blocking access to Google Wallet because it competed with their own wallet apps. Verizon blocked tethering and required an extra fee to share internet access from customer-owned smartphones to their network. And AT&T tried to block access to FaceTime for their own competition. Now I'm going to stop my letter here for one moment. I'm going to talk about this Verizon blocking tethering because this is the very year I first got my first smartphone. And the question became, if the smartphone itself contains the software and the hardware to share an internet connection, why is it we can't do that? Now, I was able to root my Android phone, and so I was able to tether it through a rooted app. However, it was actually a service that was disabled by Verizon themselves. So this directly impacted me. Why did they do that? Because they wanted to charge an extra $20 a month for the ability to take the smartphone which you owned and share your network across it. And that actually hurt a lot of people because that's what caused a lot of people to buy the hotspots. And a lot of people don't realize you don't really need those hotspots a whole lot anymore. If you have a smartphone, your smartphone can be your hotspot. All right, we're going to get back to the letter. These attempts by Comcast, Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, and others were all blocked because it was considered predatory to force customers to use ISP-owned services or other services available in the public marketplace. These incidents occurred during this Wild West period, but in 2015 rules acted to protect consumers and that they defined clearly what the ISP could not block or throttle traffic. If these rules are abolished, it will mean the above examples will not only be possible, but fully legal, and the ISPs will be able to control their networks, including pushing their auxiliary services while blocking those of their competitors. Third, I will address the problem of competition. While I assert maintaining net neutrality is the best of all options, I would settle for ISP competition. Mr. Pai asserts there is ample competition and that the market will take care of itself. This is not even remotely true. The biggest providers of the internet do not overlap their service in most locations, and many people have access to up to only one high-speed ISP. I have Comcast, and I do not want Comcast. They repeatedly raise my rates and attempt to inappropriately add a modem fee to my bill despite my owning my own modem since 2005. I have spent countless hours trying to get them to correct my bill, and every few months the rental fee shows up again. The problem is I work on the internet, so I need high-speed internet to do my job. The second best ISP in my area provides 3.5 Mbps service, and I am in one of the top 5 metropolitan areas in my state. My friend 3 miles down the road has exactly one option for what Mr. Pai would call broadband internet. The speeds are consistently 1.5 Mbps. We have no competition. Americans do not have a choice in their ISP, and our internet is provided based on the location of our residence. We are exclusively at the pure mercy of only one ISP for a service that is objectively a utility, and the FCC would like to give those companies ultimately power to self-regulate themselves. Next, I will address a little about politics. Our nation is extremely divided right now on nearly every issue. Worse still, rather than people talking about the issues, I repeatedly hear, if the Republicans, ... if the Democrats, ... in all matters of life. We need to move beyond mere labels of Republican and Democrat and come to some form of agreement. I can only think of one single issue right now that has the majority of Republicans and Democrats agree. That is net neutrality. The vastest majority of Americans want to keep the rules as they are because those fragile rules are the only things keeping the American internet from becoming completely commandeered by the ISPs. We cannot leave our ISP for a competitor. During the comment period, there were a lot of spam comments on the FCC form. But when the obvious spam comments were removed, 98.5% of the comments supported keeping net neutrality. The American people have spoken, yet Mr. Pai seeks to do what he has decided to do, and it is the most anti-consumer and pro-ISP decision he could possibly make in his decision. Reversing the net neutrality rules will hurt consumers, it will hurt small businesses, and it will only seek to enrich the shareholders at the ISPs. Everyone else could be forced to pay a lot of extra fees for the simple task of getting onto the internet, and in America today, money is getting awfully tight. Mr. Pai is holding his office unfaithfully. To back up my claim of Mr. Pai holding his office unfaithfully, I will review the 4 strategic goals printed on the FCC About website. Promoting economic growth and national leadership is number 1. Economic growth occurs through innovation, and in the internet age, innovation must have free and unfettered access to both the internet and the potential customers they seek to serve. If these rules are overturned, an ISP is free to throttle new technologies that compete with services they have vested interest in promoting, therefore hurting new industries and preventing new innovations from growing new business leaders in our community. Number 2 is protecting public interest goals. This strategic goal goes on to read, and I quote, "The rights of network users and the responsibilities of network providers form a bond that includes consumer protection, competition, universal service, public safety, and national security. The FCC must protect and promote this network compact." End quote. If the net neutrality rules are overturned, customers have no protections because they will be locked into an ISP and forced to pay any amount demanded and only use those services the ISP allows. We already discussed how competition is damaged, and these apply further to universal service. Number 3, making networks work for everyone. If these rules are removed, networks as we know them will stop working for many people. Services will be able, under law, to be throttled or fast-laned. Tethering could once again be blocked, and many more people may not be able to access the legal content or services online as they have been using them before these rules were overturned. And number 4, promoting operational excellence. This goal goes on to say, quote, "Make the FCC a model for excellence in government by effectively managing the FCC resources and maintaining a commitment to transparent and responsive processes that encourage public involvement and serve the public interest." It is very clear that by ignoring the unified voice of the American people and listening only to the interests of the ISP lobby, that Mr. Pai and the FCC are not demonstrating operational excellence. I have laid out here many points on why it is imperative the 2015 net neutrality rules are protected, and I implore you, by the power of your office, to do whatever is possible to make sure the American people's voice is heard, and that the FCC does not hand over the internet to a few mega corporations and trust that those companies will do the best thing for the American people. It is not their nature or their interest. As companies, their primary responsibility is always to their shareholders, and that enables a few large companies to gouge any cost from the American people without any governmental intervention. You, however, as our elected officials, are in the best position to care for the American people, and I implore you to stop the FCC from destroying the internet. The 2015 net neutrality rules must stand. Thank you.